Welcome everybody to Monday night's empowering session where we're going to jump in, dive in, and learn more about how to support your digestive tract with the wonderful Verdezymes combination. And let's start this off with hearing from Shauna Kaufman and what she has to say and how she uses the Verdezymes.
Hi, a testimony for Verdezymes. I love the Verdezymes. They're one of my favorite products. Of course, they're all my favorite products, but for me, the Verdezymes combined with Sulflex PI has been a big help when I've been glutened or gotten into wheat or mold. Those are three of my biggest triggers. And not only does it mess up my gut, it shuts my lungs down. And so 8 years ago when I started doing that, it would take a couple of days to get back on top of it. Now it's a couple of hours and my voice comes back and I get rid of the man voice, and it helps things just kind of go ahead and sift through, and I can keep moving on, and I don't get laid out for 2 or 3 weeks, which is what used to happen. So knowing that I've got some gut issues, and they will be ongoing because it's malabsorption and some other things. So I work very, very hard to heal my gut. I just had this discussion with my naturopath. And these products also, I have to reflect back a little bit because it's so much of a lifestyle for me that I forget, because it's just second nature. I go grab them and pop them. So I'll do 4 at a time of Sulflex PI, 4 Verdezymes. And if like an hour later I'm not where I want to be, I'll pop 2 more of each, and I'll do that for a couple of times. And then I start getting on top of it, and then I might double the next day. So I would do 4 in the morning and 4 in the evening. I use Verdezymes 3 before bedtime, irregardless of what's going on. That's just something I have to do. And I do 2 every morning. But the other thing that happens is normally I would be in bed with a migraine. And this has saved me that. You guys, I have so many lost days and hours because of all that has transpired with the gut. And Verdezymes, they're the best digestive enzyme I have ever found. And it's one of the things that will always be in my toolbox along with the Sulflex PI, because those two combined are amazing. I hope this helps somebody else.
So passion flower is a really neat plant that is in the Verdezymes. And I have used passion flower for years because of its nerving properties, which is what it is primarily known for. So otherwise it's working on the nerve endings, which think about it with pain, think about it with inflammation. And how does this tie in with the gut? Well, when we have that distension, that bloating, or the body sending us signals because maybe there's infection or impaction, anything going on, working with that nervine type properties can be really calming to the system. Well, those same type of properties don't just stay in the gut. So yes, we're looking at enzymes, but it is a bigger picture here, or an enzyme formula. So for instance, my oldest son, years ago, because he's in his 30s now, he developed some interesting little tics, and as in TICS. And because we couldn't get to the bottom of what was going on, and I was concerned about some permanent damage with that, I started giving him passion flower on a regular basis. Finally, I was able to connect with a naturopathic doctor that dialed into what exactly was going on so far as part of the structural system being out of alignment. I took him to the chiropractor. The chiropractor said the same thing. They adjusted it, and they said that because I had used the passion flower, that was why our son did not have any permanent nerve damage. So think about the power of that for something that was ongoing for a couple years, and the passion flower was able to protect that whole area. So we talked about the anti-inflammatory, anti-spasmodic. So anytime you've got cramping, even like muscle cramping or stomach cramping, it's going to be very beneficial and support with that. Analgesic properties, so we're talking about pain. And it is very good at helping to regulate pain. Insomnia, when you've got, there's some type of insomnias that can be caused by inflammation of the brain. And passion flower is very good for calming that down. And inflammation, just realize we're talking about irritated areas, areas that maybe might have um, heat or swelling in that area. It doesn't mean that there's a huge major issue. Inflammation goes where our weaker areas are, but that inflammation can be aggravating and keep us awake. There's also studies showing that passion flower can help with insulin resistance, which to me is very interesting, along with, like I said, the muscle pain. So people use the Verdezymes after a hardcore workout sometimes, along with their Sulflex PI, and they get fantastic results. Passion flower has also been used a lot for ADHD and withdrawals, as in people who are shifting maybe from alcohol use, or maybe they're coming off of a drug that they've used for a long time with the doctor. So the Verdezymes, having this passion flower in it, gives added support for the system to be working on these other areas. It is a beautiful, beautiful flower, as you can see. And then the passion fruit right there too. So it was great that Shauna said something about the migraines, because what I use, and I don't hardly ever get a migraine anymore, but mine would be so severe that I would lose sight out of my right eye and hearing out of my right ear. I have since learned that if I feel that coming on, I immediately jump on and use 4 of the Sulflex PI and 3 Verdezymes. Then usually I don't have to do another dose, but if I do 2 hours later, I'll do another dose, and then that can be the end of it, if I'm in a position of paying attention and jump on it. Again, it's just like Shauna says, it becomes part of our everyday life. We don't even think about it. We just reach for it, and we trust that the products are going to get in and do what they've done, what they have a track record of doing for us. So we just move on, and then we forget because it never went ahead and materialized. So it was kind of interesting, because when I was going back and looking for some information and different testimonies, I found a place where I had posted that, and literally that very next day, this post showed up. And this person was saying right after that I had posted this, they got a headache that they couldn't get rid of. They tried this method and it was gone. And in the past, this normally would have lasted for days. So again, Verdezymes, we're talking about inflammation anywhere in the body. And that is one of the powers of when you use an enzymatic combination, is that it can work on the inflammation beyond just what's in the gut. Marshmallow, people have always joked and thought, teased me about, oh, it's got marshmallow like the marshmallows you buy at the store. Well, marshmallow is a beautiful plant, and it is extremely healing and just outstanding, in particular for the small intestine, but anywhere in the digestive tract. And its main property that makes it stand out is the fact that it's a demulcent, which means it can be used as a poultice, but either externally, or in this case, we're talking about internally when it comes to the digestive tract. And what it will do is it will grab some of these irritants, these toxins. It's very soothing, and I've got there, that's an anti-irritant and anti-inflammatory. So it pulls what's aggravating it out of the system, and then it almost like puts a barrier there to protect it. And it's very soothing, so it allows that area to heal. The mucilaginous properties of it create some of that coating, but it's also nutritive. So not only is it coating it to give it a barrier, but it's also working on healing it. The anti-irritant also works in the case of, as the toxin leaves the body, it's helping to keep it from irritating the system going out. Another way that I'd always use marshmallow by itself was when it came to kidney stones, and I used it with it by itself and then another plant. But it was always good at helping to soothe the ureters as the kidney stones would break down as they were working on passing out, to where we had a relatively quick release from the body, and it was kept healing and soothing and healing those ureters as they would get irritated by this stone leaving. It also has properties that supports the lungs really well. Works with, like I said, urinary tract and infections. It is very good at going after infections of the body. And then to me, kind of a neat little fun fact was that a pound of marshmallow plant contains roughly about 286,000 IU of vitamin A. Now, before you start getting concerned about the amount of that, remember, any of the studies where there was danger from the high amounts of vitamin A was from a synthetic form. It is not from the plant form, because again, we have our checks and balances in here. Now, vitamin A is probably one of the parts and constituents of it that helps it be so nutritive and soothing, because vitamin A has a great propensity to support skin tissue. Wood betony is another great plant, and both of these, the wood betony and the peppermint, are in the mint family, and you can tell the leaves look kind of similar. And yes, I was that kid that grew up with all these in the yard, and we would go around and we would have to be able to identify them by the shape, be able to brush our fingers up against them, tell by the smell that would be in our fingers, touch, take a bite of it, tell by the properties of the plant to help identify how it was going to be better used in the system. Now, wood betony is a very, very highly prized plant from historically. In fact, it used to be traded because it was so valuable. But if you look at these properties as a nervine, so it's going to work for things like hysteria, it's going to work for pain. And when we look at the headaches, so you can see why that combined with the Solflex PI is so powerful. It supports the liver and helping it to get support and get release of the buildup that gets in there. Jaundice, fevers, and then it's very high in vitamin C, which would have been another reason it was so prized, because of dealing with scurvy when we had, it would take so long on a vessel to get across the ocean. Peppermint, most people are familiar with peppermint and know that it works for the stomach, and it does work for digestion, and it supports bile production, which is why it works so well for digestion. And if you think of a griping pain in the intestines, that's another way it's going to help. Any of the, you guys are familiar with these different types of things, diarrhea, colitis, nausea, dyspepsia, or otherwise type ulcers, and nervine, so it's very soothing. So you can see we have a beautiful, beautiful combination, and these are just the plants that are in here. So I want to talk about one of the big types of medications that people will come to me having been on, and that is a PPI, or a proton pump inhibitor. These are typically prescribed for acidity, gastric ulcers, or anything type related. They work by totally suppressing the production of acid. Now we have to remember this acid is there for a reason. We're talking about hydrochloric type acid, and it's there to help break down the food. Now there's different reasons why it can get out of balance and cause the issues, but if we go in and totally suppress the production of this, well, what happens? Well, number one, we can't break down the food. It sits there longer. The longer it sits there, it creates a whole different result because it starts to decay. So there are actually studies that have come out now that are showing long-term use of these medications and what can happen. Number one, kidney damage. And so these are important things to be aware of because of it's not a surprise whenever people come to me, and that's one of the things I'm going to ask them, how long have you been on this medication? They're proving now that it may cause a reduction in the body's ability to absorb calcium, therefore resulting in a bigger propensity for issues with osteoporosis. It also, because we're playing around with digestion, it's going to mess with the pH in the digestive tract, which can cause possible iron and B12 deficiencies. And a lot of people are not aware that your stomach acid also works as a barrier, well, not a barrier, it works to eradicate bacteria that comes in on your food that shouldn't be there. And so if you are reducing that stomach acid, you could actually end up with increased amounts of bacteria. Now, if you notice on the tree up there, you guys know that we talk about getting to the roots of the issues. PPIs do not go to the root of the issue. It's working on the leaves. So long-term, the issue does not go away. What we're looking at with Verdezymes is addressing the roots, helping the body to start to heal itself. So I realize that there's probably quite a few of you have never seen this demonstration. So I thought I would give you kind of a visual as to Verdezymes and how they work. So we're going to take and do a quick experiment. You guys can do this at home. All I'm doing is taking a packet of instant oatmeal and putting it into 2 different bowls down here. And then I'm going to add some boiling water, enough to just mix this up. I'm not an oatmeal connoisseur, so getting the amount ideal is not really in my wheelhouse. So one of these, all I'm doing is mixing in just the plain water into the oatmeal, stirring it up really good. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. Should be, it looks like I've got about the same amount of water, gone up to the same, going to the same line here on the stripe in my bowls. Didn't realize that. That makes that kind of easy. Then I'm going to take the Verdezymes. I'm going to take 2 capsules and open them up and put them in here. There's one. Let's get the second one. Okay. I'm going to mix the Verdezymes into the oatmeal. Mixed in there pretty well. And then let's see if you can see. You can see we've got the 2 bowls here of the oatmeal. And then we're looking at the watch here, seeing what time it is. We're going to wait 1 hour and be right back. Okay, it's been an hour since we left our bowl of oatmeal. Bowls of oatmeal, so you can see they're both still there. Everything is here, been untouched. So the oatmeal just by itself, I want you to see that, look, I can turn it virtually upside down. Actually, I probably could. Yep, the spoon stays right there. Now, the other bowl is one that has had 2 capsules of the Verdezymes in it. That's all. So I'm going to do the same thing. As you can see, very quickly, it just pours out. So the enzymes, by themselves, not doing anything other than sitting there, look what they did towards breaking down the food. And this is totally different than what's in the stomach, because in the stomach, you still have the movement and the shifting, and it keeps on turning and moving. This is just sitting there. Imagine what they do in your stomach when the stomach is doing its job, and be able to do that as well. So I have always loved being able to demonstrate this idea because it gives such a great visual. And just think of how often people feel like the food is just sitting there. And so imagine if we're stopping the body's ability to produce the acids and to break it down. No wonder it feels like there is a rock in people's stomach. So at this point, I would like to stop this screen share and turn it over to Greg Halliday. So he's going to talk about some of the plant-sourced enzymes that are actually in this combination.
Thanks, Valerie. That was an awesome demonstration. And thanks, Shauna, for sharing your story, because you just reminded me that's a great combination, Sulflex PI and Verdezymes. Valerie has the same tool. I just wanted to share, I don't know if you can, I think you have to enable the sharing for me, Valerie, real quickly. I'll share one screen with you. You might have to make, there you go, perfect. Okay, it's just, I just want to show the label today. Let's see, tell me if, can everyone see it? The
Yes.
Verdezymes label? So this is just off the website. You know, has anyone ever looked at the labels on the website where you click on read more on the product, and there's either an info sheet you can look at, which we often reference, or you can look at the actual, a copy of the label. And the reason I wanted to show it, because I just wanted to make a couple comments today. One is that Verdezymes is a real balanced, I would call it a balanced enzyme, a plant-sourced enzyme, in that it has all the enzymes needed to break down all the major macronutrients that we need. So proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. All 3 of those, it does very well. That's when you look at the top group on the supplement facts, it says plant-sourced enzymes. That group kind of gives you the picture where you can see, if you're familiar with enzymes at all, the various enzymes for the macronutrients that we typically should be eating and we need to have in our diets. So that's not that's not particularly rare, okay? What that part of the formula. It's a little bit less common in that it's purely plant-sourced enzymes. Really common, and Valerie and I and others, we were always used to enzymes that were often a combination. There would be hydrochloric acid added, animal source, of course, and it makes sense because as we get older, we produce less and less of that. But I got this idea into my head, my own experience was that originally that was the most strong enzyme. And then if I wanted to try an enzyme maybe not quite so powerful, I might use a plant source enzyme. What I've learned since then, that is actually not true. And in fact, in my own personal life, I noticed a huge difference, a huge change in my health when I switched to a plant-sourced enzyme. And so I actually had some time using a good plant-sourced enzyme formula for years before we founded Soul. And often if I had to travel and I had to eat late at night because of meetings as part of work, instead of it, as I got older, instead of it keeping me up, I could just take the enzymes, just as Valerie just showed. And I did not ever have the rock in my stomach, but what I needed to take at that time were the plant-sourced enzymes. For me, in my situation, I couldn't use a combination that had animal source with it. And so that's the first point, is that it's very balanced. It is something that can be taken virtually any time of day or night, I guess I would add, depending on a person's needs and what they want to do with it. But there's a real big difference that I wanted to point out, and that is the second group of enzymes that you see. We call it a multi-pH protease blend. Now that is something that is unique. That's something that you won't find in any other product. I have known products that have carried more than one in the formula protease. There are many different names. Many different companies have their proprietary form of protein digestive enzymes. And those are proteases. You will often find, even on a label of a product, you can find one or two, but then when you look at them and you look them up, they're from multiple suppliers, but they're actually the same enzyme. So it looks like you're getting a variety, but you're actually not, because you can get the same enzyme with a different name. That's just a little industry secret. I'll let you know. It's because they are produced by different suppliers, and they each use their own name. So just because it has a different name doesn't necessarily mean it's a different type of protease. Why is that even important? Well, because what we've learned, and as we were founding and developing the first group of products for Soul, one thing our scientists emphasized with us is that protein digestive enzymes, work best in a certain pH range. And there are some protein digestive enzymes, so I could be getting them from papaya, I could get them from pineapple. There are different places I can get enzymes that are particular to protein digestion. And some of them do have a similar pH range or a similar acid level that they function in, but others are very different. And that's why sometimes a person can use one and say, oh, I got a result, or I didn't even get a result. I tried that and it didn't work. It could be sometimes the acid situation in their body. So this is one of the secrets that this formula addresses, is that protease enzymes have different pH needs. So what we did is we have 4 here. They are all unique. They're all different. They aren't a different name for the same type of protease, and they all have slightly different pH, and that's why we call it multi-pH. We tried to cover the broadest range of acid. So I know that's a little bit technical, and I apologize if I'm not the best at explaining it, but its goal is to make it so that the largest number of people possible can take Verdezymes and get the results that Valerie's teaching, that Sean is sharing, that you all talk about. Why? Because it almost doesn't matter what they've got going on acid-wise. Remember, acid is created by a lot of different things, including stress, including emotional. And so What we did is we added a broad range of them. We have just named them protease 1, 2, 3, and 4 because it's a proprietary blend, okay? We could have been more specific, but there are 4 different types. The second thing that I wanted to point out to you is once we had our blend, we doubled the amount that you would typically use for each of these proteases. That's not, I don't know if I mentioned that every time as well. It actually has twice the amount you would typically use. That is, if you compare it to the other enzymes above, this first group here, that is enough for really any meal, there's a double amount. Why did we do that? Well, one reason is stress and lifestyle are really ramped up, we think, and eating habits are just a lot more extreme in general, okay, for society. By extreme, I mean more processed and maybe less balanced, maybe both of those things. I would say stress is that way as well. But the second reason is this blend is wonderful. I'm sure Valerie, and I don't want to go over that if you're going to cover that later, Valerie, but it's also wonderful to take particularly these protease enzymes on an empty stomach where they're not being utilized principally in digestion, but they're being absorbed. And when they get into the bloodstream and not used up in the breaking down of food, then those same enzymes are involved in reparations, whether it's anything to do with balancing blood lipids and blood sugars to inflammation to abnormal cell. There are lots of different studies. There are some great German studies that led to us making the formula the way we did, that showed that when you take protein digestive enzymes on an empty stomach, a lot of things in the body that need repairing can happen. And so I remember Dr. Allison pointing out a few months ago that before the development of ibuprofen and some of the famous painkillers, it was protein digestive enzymes taken in good amounts several times a day. So I hope that helps a little bit explain why we've got what we've got on the back there, a variety of protease. The last thing I might mention is you can see Valerie did a great job talking about the herbs in there. You can see those last two. Are you going to talk at all? Are you going to reference the xanthan and konjac, Valerie?
No, not other than just a sentence. So go ahead.
Okay. All I wanted to say was this was a solution we're really excited about. Instead of having to enteric coat a capsule, which is heating it and coating it with something stronger but also more brittle, so that the enzymes can get further into the digestive tract and out of the stomach, that's something that's been used typically with probiotics in the past. And I believe it's also effective, in my opinion, with enzymes. Instead of having to do that and using heating and an extra coating, there's a very small amount of 2 acid-resistant fibers that tend to resist a little bit the stomach acid enough to where they attach to these enzymes and let them get further into the digestive tract. So that's a small point as well, but it's very, I believe it's like a lever, a little fulcrum in a lever that can be a tiny little piece that greatly increases the strength of something. I think those 2, xanthan and konjac, are like that to these enzymes because and I believe they're one of the key reasons why we see kind of uncommon results with this formula.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg.
You bet.
So just like Greg was talking, with the different enzymes in there, there really is a synergy that happens with the different plants, the enzymes. All of this together makes it bigger than what the label says. And one of my concerns is always that people do not pigeonhole these products because they have so many different, there's so much bigger players in the game. For instance, the proteases alone, if can be used, and I've seen them used also, so this formula used this way, if you're starting to come down with maybe a virus, because proteases attack the protein coating around a virus. Taking those hourly can also help to break that down to make that virus more susceptible to being killed off by maybe our other products that we're using. So there's so many different benefits. Again, so much bigger than just a bottle of enzymes to help with digestion. Now, as you see, you guys know what a big believer I am in the Bella Health package, and now you understand the power that Verdezymes bring to the table in this package, which is designed as a gut restart package. But to me, if we look at how the importance that the gut brings to the table in our health. In fact, I was even looking at an article tying in gut health and thyroid health and how they directly affect each other. And we see all these different thyroid issues. Well, the gut health, if we cannot absorb and break down our things, just think of all the different side effects I was talking about from the PPIs. Now think of the pictures even bigger. How can we not end up having just a huge plethora of issues to deal with if we do not get our digestion straightened out? So the Verdezymes play a big role in this. The probiotic, the probioIQ, also getting that good gut health bacteria in there. The vital with the chlorophylls coming in and helping to alkalize, helping to support the kidneys and lymphatics with cleaning out. We've got the minerals coming from a couple of different plants in there. We also have the cinnamate supporting pancreas, liver, helping to keep balanced blood sugar. Again, this package is designed to go to the roots of the tree, not the leaves, even though you may feel like it's going to leaves because of the different results that you see. So another great quote here says, a successful therapy requires harmony of the physical and the psychological functions in order to achieve a restoration of the body in its entirety. As you know, one of the things I absolutely love about the Soul Naturals product line is its ability to address both body and mind, so that your mind gets on board and emotionally you're feeling better, you're getting more clarity so you can follow through, you've got better outlook, while physically the body starts to work on healing. So unification of all this helps the body, to me, to move forward on a complete healing path. So next week, we'll be talking about Omnitox, and detoxification power squared is what I feel like this product does. So I'm kind of excited to get in and talk about that. That will be next Monday night.